Yeah. Sounds good. Okay. Good morning again, everyone. I'm Eric Selder, President of Red Bank Humanist, and thank you for coming today. Today I'm going to do the introductions without a script so I can look at you all a little bit more, see how that goes. Welcome to our July Forum, which will be a discussion and recap of the Reason Rally that took place this past June the 4th. I had hoped that a couple of our members were going to be there and I was going to interview them afterwards, and it turned out that they weren't able to go. So I reached out to some friends at New Jersey Humanist Network, and they're here to give us our Reason Rally recap. So I'll be having an informal interview with them today. And that'll be the subject of the program. So this is our monthly forum, free and open to the public. And what we're about is providing a place for humanists, atheists, agnostics, and other like-minded folks to have a place to come together and speak openly and be able to let down our hair and meet other people who are like us and form a community that way. We've been doing this for over a dozen years, and in fact this is about the time of our membership year turnover. So if you are a member and want to renew or would like to join for the first time, we have membership applications at the welcome table, and if you're already a member you don't have to fill out the whole form again. But the dues are just $30 for an individual and $45 for a family, and that takes care of you all year. And that goes to support programs like today's forum and the other events that we do. And speaking of upcoming events, we will have our monthly Drinking Post Theologically, as we usually do on the last Thursday of the month. So that'll be July the 28th this time around at 8 p.m. over at the Oyster Point Hotel here in Red Bank. That's always a nice time. It's a very quiet place where you can get a drink or not and talk with your fellow humanists. It's our most informal events. The RBH Book Club is reading an atheist manifesto called Fighting God by our speaker for November. That's Dave Silverman, President of American Atheists. So this is going to be a big draw. He will speak to us in September, but this book club event is on August 4th at 7:30. You can see in the upcoming events the contact is Irma Lester. You can reach out to her and find out where they are meeting this month. It's not off the top of my head, but book club is always a good time. And then for August, we don't have a forum like this in August, for those of you who are new to the group. Instead, we have a picnic. Same day, but at a slightly different time. We meet at Bodman Park at noon, from noon to about 4, although we don't rush and close at 4, so you're welcome to stay as long as you want. There's a flyer for that on the reverse side of today's program. And then in September, we're having Dave Silverman on September 11th at this place this time, and he'll give us a rousing talk about his atheist manifesto called Fighting God. He's come and spoke to us before a few years ago. He is the vanguard, the leader of the shock troops of the secular movement, right? So that should be a very interesting time. He was great last time, and we'll be hearing from him again in September. And then I guess the only other thing to mention again is that we are, towards the tail end of our membership drive. So if you haven't had a chance to re-up, you can see Melissa at the welcome table, and she can take pretty much any form of payment. And if you need to sign up anew, there are membership forms there. I should mention that we are collecting, our monthly collection today is for Family Promise, of Monmouth County. They offer temporary housing and free services for homeless families. And so we're collecting a variety of home cleaning supplies. So if you did bring something for that, you can leave it at the community outreach group table with Trudy sitting minding the store there. And then let's see, we're not taking a collection at the picnic, are we? No. Okay. So the next collection will be when we have Dave Silverman here in September, and that will be for Ocean County Hunger Relief, and they would appreciate any sort of non-perishable food. With that, I'd like to start on our little panel discussion. So, as I said at the outset, there was the big Reason Rally back in just a month ago on the 4th of June, and we had some hopes of gathering a bunch of people and going down, and we talked about arranging transportation and various things, but it seemed like there wasn't critical mass within Red Bank Humanist. I did think there were a few who were planning to go. They had reservations, but they had to cancel sort of at the last minute. So I think it's interesting. It would be interesting for you all to hear what went on, so that you have an understand, a sense of how the Reason Rally went, what it was about. I don't know if they're planning a next one yet. But I imagine there probably will be a next one at some point. They're not regular, they're not annual.
I think the years are planned on purpose, so if they do another one, it'll probably be 2020.
As a political, getting ready for the next election, right? So the Reason Rally has, I guess, a variety of purposes to it. One is to gather people together, obviously, and also to gather people together to hear foremost people in the secular movement come and speak to the assembled crowd. But there's also the purpose of being more openly visible to the general public and to make a political statement that you can be non-religious and still be an upstanding citizen of this country. And also they do alongside that lobby days where they go and visit congressmen and senators and lobby them for our issues, whether it be separation of church and state or a combination of the non-religious in public ceremonies to various aspects of non-discrimination, to the way the tax code seems always to favor religious groups over secular ones, and so on and so forth. So they do align them with the election season. So I guess we should expect the next one in 2020. But we probably won't hear much about that for a while yet. But I wanted to give you all a sense of what was going on. So let me first get some general thoughts about what it was like to be there, and what. Let me sort of start by saying what made you want to go.
Should I tell you who I am?
Oh yes, let me introduce our panelists. So on my right is Tim Ridge and Lisa Ridge, and I should mention that Lisa is you're still president, right? Still president of New Jersey Humanist Network, and I should mention, and Tim, you're
the
treasurer, right? And then there's the secretary to all of New Jersey Humanist Network. So let me tell you a little bit about you can tell a little bit about New Jersey Humanist Network. But let me just preface this with mentioning that New Jersey Humanist Network is in some sense the mother organization to this one, because it was at a picnic that was, I guess, jointly sponsored by New Jersey Humanist Network and some other folks. I think American Atheists may have been involved at the time.
It might have been the Center for Inquiry.
The Center for Inquiry as well. But I went up to this picnic, And I was talking to Lisa and asking her, hey, do you know of anything, in New Jersey? She says, oh yeah, we have a group in New Jersey, and but at that time we were meeting up in like Washington's Crossing, something like that. It's sort of far from the coast.
So the NJHN started in Warren County
Right.
with a bunch of folks who lived up in that area, meeting in their homes, and then as more people started coming to those meetings from farther and farther away, they decided to pick a more central location. And when Tim and I got involved, they were meeting in Bridgewater.
Well, they were already meeting.
Right.
Okay.
And so we're based in Somerset now. So, but yeah, you were at the picnic, and it turned out that there was this other guy.
Right, Ron
From
Steelman.
Red Bank, and we should introduce you guys. And it was Ron Steelman.
Yep. And so she was responsible for introducing Ron and myself as people from the shore here who were both interested in having something more local. And so he and I got together and started this group then. That was back in 2003. So.
And you guys came all the way up to Long Valley, which is in northern Morris County, northwestern Morris County. That was how interested you were in
Right.
meeting up with other like-minded folks.
So,
And the other folks that we have with us today are Carol Shields and Marilyn Francis. Marilyn is on the NJHN Board of Directors. They were also at the Reason Rally. I think do both of you come down with some regularity to Red Bank meetings? I know.
Yeah.
So they like to.
We get around.
They get around. That's what they say. So yeah, we had a bit more coordination for going to the rally this year than we did back in 2012, and we all managed to sort of meet up this year and stay together. We came different ways. Some folks took bus, some drove, some we took the train, and we all managed to meet up in the same general area. So was it you, Carol, who counted? There were about 20 of us from New Jersey, from different parts of the state. I need that? Yeah.
no, I was
Okay.
I thought it was starting now.
And so why did we go? Well, we're kind of, we're activists. And so it was pretty natural that we would go. The reasons why we go are to show people in this country that we are getting organized. We are getting, we are starting to coordinate, and not all just be separate organizations with separate goals and separate memberships, that we are starting to form a coalition of organizations. And we want to send that message that we're not going to be quiet anymore. And of course, you want to hear what leaders in these different organizations in the movement have to say. And also this year they brought in so many other people that weren't the usual people that you hear from at a conference or previous rallies. So, and that was important. I think that's. Guys, have any other reasons why you went?
I didn't go to the one in 2012. I couldn't go, and this year I could. And I've been to rallies. I've been to marches. I marched on Washington for abortion rights like 3 times. So going to be a presence is something I do, and it was fun. And this way I didn't have to march. I just sat in a comfortable chair and watched speakers, and it was easier. It was fun.
So this rally comes on the heels of two other gatherings on the mall. One was back in, I think it was 2002, the Godless Americans March on Washington. Which, was that actually a march, or was that also more of a rally in one place? They actually have a starting point and an ending point?
That was a rally as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It was not nearly as big as the recent rallies. Estimates were that there were about 2,000 people there, and it was sponsored by American Atheists and a couple of other organizations. It wasn't the wide group of national organizations that are part of the Secular Coalition that we have now. At the time, Ellen Johnson was president of American Atheists, and so she introduced everybody. And there were a lot of good speeches, but because the rally was much smaller, we had a smaller permit space, and surrounding us on all sides were Christian protesters with gigantic signs, 12 feet high. They had flagpole holders, on their belts, so they could carry these 12-foot high signs that basically said, "You're going to burn in hell," Jesus hates atheists and whatever. And but it was a good time. A memorable moment for me were when Edward Kagan came up to the podium to speak, and he said, "I'm going to put my glasses on, these intelligently designed eyes, so I can read this talk." And there was a point in time where Lisa and I had to find a restroom, and we had to go quite a long distance to get there. And when we came back out, we heard this voice coming through the microphone that sounded like a preacher, and he was speaking in the preachy tones that you might remember from any churches you've been to in the past. And we like, "What happened? Did the protesters take over the microphone?" And no, it was Pastor Deacon Fred of the West Landover Baptist Church, and he was lampooning religion by pretending to be a preacher. And this is what really set the protesters off. They hated him more than anybody else.
And then the other precursor to this one was there was the first Reason Rally by that name back in 2012, and that was a much bigger event than the Reason Rally. So one of the things we talked about beforehand was sort of a bit of a comparison amongst the three events. We've already mentioned that that Godless Americans March on Washington was a smaller event and was almost, would you say there were almost as many protesters as?
Oh, no.
No, not.
The protesters were numbered in two digits.
Oh, okay, so they were just
maybe
the
15
sideshow,
or 20
okay.
or 25 protesters, and we had 2,000.
Okay, so that's.
I'm remembering now that there was a bit of a march aspect to the 2002 march. I think we all met at like one end of the mall, maybe like the Washington Monument end, and I think our stage was somewhere in the middle. And we were looking at the Capitol, right? And so I think we did gather at the Washington Monument and then we all marched together up into the center area. And I remember I was surrounded by people everywhere. I was completely surrounded by like-minded people, and we were thrilled. We didn't know how many people. It might have been 10,000. For all we knew, we were surrounded, and so there was some electricity about that. The American Atheists had a New Jersey director at the time, and they chartered a bus. We took a bus, all of us, there together, so we had that whole period of time to get to know each other and talk, and they were showing Family Guy on a constant loop that people were talking about. So, yeah, 2012 certainly had a lot of electricity to it. It was one of the first times that all of these organizations came together. That was very powerful. If you've been involved as an activist in the movement. There is so much infighting, and I know in some ways some of that is still going on, but there was previously no chance that American Atheists and American Humanist Association and Center for Inquiry and Council for Secular Humanism, Freedom from Religion Foundation, they just had not been doing coordinated events in any way. So, and of course, in that rally, we were all together, right? You know, and yes, it was raining, and it was also the same weekend as the American Atheist Annual Convention, which was being held in in Virginia, I think, across the river. And so there really was a buzz, and it was the first time that you really realized that there were so many more people who were interested in doing it, other than just the regular activists, the leaders from different organizations around the state that you had already come to know from various conventions. And all of a sudden there were so many more people, and there were going to be these really famous people who were going to be doing speeches, and also then the recorded speeches from famous people like Bill Maher and Penn Jillette and various other folks that were going to be there. So that was very electric, right? And the difference between that rally and this rally was, I'm not sure if the 2012 rally had a theme, but it pretty much was, we're here, we're growing, we're not going to be quiet anymore, we're not going to be shamed into silence anymore, and that was...
And we vote.
Yeah, and we vote. Well, that's really was pretty much a theme of this past rally. So the 2012 rallies focused a lot on discrimination that we faced, and that we were angry. We were angry, and that we weren't going to take it anymore. And all these organizations were going to start coming together, which I think, really did cause many of the religious organizations, the American Family Association, and you know what their names are, that they started to realize that they were going to get pushback from then on. And they have gotten pushback from then on. This time, I think the rally was more focused on, they had specific issues that they were going to address, which really did make the tent much bigger in terms of who came and who the speakers were. And it was a lot more about pushing science education, a lot more about, having a voice in Washington.
What were those issues that were discussed this time?
The three issues that were discussed this time were climate change, women's reproductive rights, and LGBT rights. And always with a scientific, foundation to it.
And I think that the overriding theme was separation of church and state.
In 2012.
In this one, 2016.
I think that's always...
Yeah, but I thought that was the overriding theme of this thing. I mean, besides the other issues, okay.
Not so much, well, yes, the need for the separation of church and state in these issues that we need to address, that need,
Just across the board.
Right, I think that's always been. case.
Yeah. So you were saying that the speakers were somewhat different. So you were saying that in the 2012 March, it was mostly leadership of the different groups, and then this time it was a broader spectrum.
Yeah, I pulled up the speaker list. Obviously, besides Bill Nye and let's see, get past. We'll get to the rappers at the
John Davidson was there. Remember John Davidson? He gave an interesting talk about the history of his television career and how he was always an atheist. And he had worked with George Carlin early in their careers before George Carlin became such a well-known name. And George went off and started his own thing and became an open atheist. And John Davidson did not, because he was afraid that he wouldn't get work. He came out as an atheist, and he shied away from identifying himself for years and years, and finally, I just a couple of years ago decided I'm going to come out, and it was very interesting to hear what he had to say, and he actually sang.
It was wonderful.
He sang a
what did he sing?
Take me up to the ball game?
No,
He did his own version of God Bless America without the God part in it. And it was beautiful. He's 75, something like that, and he's got a set of pipes on him still, and he's still gorgeous. And it was just
He did talk
the highlight
about.
of my day.
He did talk about how often he was asked to speak or to sing the national anthem at various baseball games, and then came the year where he was asked to sing the national anthem and God Bless America, and that he turned to his wife and said, "I can't do this," and he turned down the invitation to do it because he didn't want to explain why he could sing the national anthem but then not stay and sing God Bless America. So he turned down the invitation by saying he was, he had another conflict. He was one of you could just tell as he was talking that he felt so much happier in this year and a half since he had come out. And I think the same it was like that also with, I'm going to get his name wrong, John.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about him.
John Delancey.
Yeah.
Carol will talk about John.
Yeah, I don't think I need a microphone, I'm a teacher. I was a public school teacher, and then I went on to work at an engineering college, and I'm still affiliated with them. And I loved Q. John Delancey is his name. How many know Q from Star Trek?
From
Star Trek.
From the Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah, he was not the original in the original.
He was cute.
He was Q, yeah, who could forget Q?
He was a god.
Well, anyway, he is also a Shakespearean actor. You wouldn't recognize him. He's a very distinguished gentleman. And he lectures all over the country in colleges about science fiction, about his days of Star Trek, about Shakespeare. He's a real Renaissance man. He told a story about going to a college, this was, in Iowa, and he was going to be talking about science fiction as it was in TNG. And the teacher said, "I have to warn you, half these kids think the Earth is 6,000 years old." He said, "This is a college? These kids they happen to be," it was a methods course for teachers in science education and literature. It was science and literature was the name of the. So, and he said that can't be true. So he actually, at the beginning of his session, he said, how many of you understand what evolution is? And he just asked some questions, and he said it was 60% of the people said that they really thought Adam and Eve walked on this earth, and these are college kids. The earth is 6,000 years old. So he went on quite a rant, as did Bill Nye, about this. And the importance of being vigilant I am a member of I am an NJEA rep, and I have to say New Jersey is good. We have evolution written into our state standards. So the kids learn it in 5th grade, even 4th. In all my 25 years of teaching public school science, I only had one parent come to me. That person was an architect. And I'll never forget her. And she said to me, why aren't you teaching creationism as part of your origins of the universe? I said, talk to the English teacher. That would be under mythology. And my principal, Marilyn knows the principal of the school, he supported me fully, and that woman took her kids out and homeschooled them, and I said, good riddance. And I don't know what happened to those 2 kids. I feel bad for them. They might still live in Bridgewater for all I know, but I hope I don't run into them. So his point was, we have to be vigilant, because just over in the border, and I know this because I belong to the National Science Teachers Association, we have schools where teachers are trying to teach creationism, even public schools. So you go over 3 hours into Pennsylvania, you can see this. And it happens all the time. You know the case they had in Dover, Pennsylvania, not too long ago, just a couple of years. So it behooves all of us, even if you're not a teacher, belong to lobby groups that support the lawsuits that sometimes teachers have to defend their positions. We have a lot of cases along the Gulf Coast of schools where the teachers are told, these are science teachers, that they have to teach creationism along with scientific theory. So it's, you know, you think this can't really be happening in this country, and it's happening. There are college kids that have been so indoctrinated, and they're going to be teachers. So look, I belong to so many lobby groups. Your money goes to a good place for these lawsuits, believe me. Look in the paper and see if there's anything going on in your own district, even if they try to get their foot in, which I've heard glimmers of this down in South Jersey, down in Burlington County. I don't know if anybody's from down there, but I've heard some suspicious things going on. So that was his point, is we all have to fight against nonsense and superstition. We can't raise a generation of kids that are just plain foolish, that believe in this crap. And he did a wonderful job. He's a fabulous speaker. And Bill Nye was good, but Hugh really got that knife into these people and made it clear. And he was very well received. So he was my favorite speaker. And in my opinion, it was worth going just to hear him speak. So that's what I have to say.
What were some of the other speakers' topics?
Well, those two, Bill Nye and he talked about education, as did Julia Sweeney talked about her Catholic education. So that's what I'm thinking about specifically as an educator. I wanted to hear what they had to say. And those three, that was there. But especially Q.
John Delancey.
John Delancey is his name, yes. But when he came out, people were saying Q, Q, Q. So.
You mentioned lawsuits, because what you're saying about forcing science teachers to teach what is essentially,
Garbage, yeah.
well, garbage. theological God, is in my mind definitely unconstitutional.
It is.
But does our organization support these lawsuits? I mean, are
Well,
we-
American Atheist definitely does. So does Freedom from Religion. I brought one of their newspapers here. They have all the lawsuits that are current, all the states that are abusing this. And I think you should belong, everybody should belong to a national advocacy group, just to keep abreast of what's happening outside of our borders. We live in a fool's paradise here.
We do.
We really do. So as soon as you step out, oh. We just came back from California, and there was some out there too, so.
I think one impact of this is really that, I mean, I work in technology, and a very high percentage of the people that I work with are from another country abroad. And I think what we're doing is that we are essentially diminishing our stock of scientific and, not to mention engineering, but scientific.
Can you hold the microphone a little closer?
Yeah, I'm just saying that I think that we are hurting ourselves in the long run in science and
We
some
are.
of the crucial areas, because, if you believe in creationism, then a lot of science just falls away, totally.
So there were one of the significant goals of the Reason Rally Committee this time was to bring in a much more diverse line of speakers. There were many more women, there were many more speakers of color, and there were also speakers representing the atheists and humanists in different parts of the world. One of the speakers was the wife of Abhijit Roy, who was killed in Bangladesh. She spoke about the efforts of the atheist community there and the horrific murders that are being committed against them for speaking out, for just speaking out about the importance of science and reason. Lawrence Krauss, spoke very eloquently about a young woman from Afghanistan.
I think that's right.
Afghanistan that he's been involved in trying to help. She's apparently, with very little schooling, is extremely intelligent and has aptitude for science and math, and the efforts that she's made to get out of Afghanistan to get testing so that she can get sponsorship to come to the United States to study in scientific programs.
At the university.
Yeah, at university. And he spoke about, the attempts that were made for her to get the proper visa to leave the country to come to the United States, and she's been denied because she's a girl, and they don't think that. But she went to another country. I'm not sure if it was Pakistan, but she went somewhere where she was able to get testing, and she's tests very high in science and math with almost no schooling. But her family is supportive, and so she's learned a lot from the internet. She's got books that she's been able to, keep secretly into the house. And he spoke on his efforts to help her, get out of that situation. So it was a lot more. You were saying about it being about separation of church and state, and it really was more the urgent need for us to focus on science-based information and getting what we're losing in young people who are not who are not only not getting taught correct scientific information, they're being taught misinformation. And the devastating effect that's going to have in future generations. I think that was really, there was an urgency to that.
Was Johnny Depp there? I heard he was gonna be there. What did he have to say?
He was not there. He was canceled at least a week, if not more, in advance. Amber Heard was also supposed to be there. Neither one of them came. They've got their own personal difficulties, and it was clearly the best decision that they didn't come.
Why would you say that?
That would have been a complete distraction from, and I'm sure they knew that. Right. All of the media attention would have been on their divorce, the allegations
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
That's
read
stuff going on. Okay.
of, yeah.
It was ugly, it was an ugly split.
And you know, the people who were there, I mean, they weren't coming because Johnny Depp was gonna be there.
So you mentioned that there were a number of different rappers who came. Did they have lyrics that they wrote for an atheist message?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't speak to that. Actually, and I have to, you know, there's no shame in admitting that they did a full concert at the end of the rally, at which point we were leaving. Because if we haven't mentioned it so far, it's a very important thing to mention. It was very, very hot and humid. And it had, I think, and it did, we discussed this, Eric, it had an impact, I think, on the rally. It made it, between the heat and the fact that it was in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and then, so the reflecting pool was in the middle of it, we were separated. There was a crowd over here, there was a crowd over here. So, and the fact that people pretty early on, earlier than we did, walked away from all of that concrete and headed back into the shade, into the grass, under the trees. You know, there were first aid tents that had a constant line of people who were just trying to get sprayed, misted with water, and some of the vendors, the park vendors that were around ran out of water, and so people, there was somebody in our group who, after like 2 hours, he checked his phone and he said, "My wife got me a tour at the White House. I'm going to go away for a couple of hours." And I think there were people who maybe got on tour buses around the park area just to get into the air conditioning for a little while. So there was the heat and the location were factors that made it seem more subdued. Like I said, when in 2012 in the rain, somebody would speak and everybody was like, yeah, like this, and this time somebody would say something really great, and what would we do?
Very hot.
It was very hot.
We did because we were aware of what happened in 2012, where Paul Provenza, the MC, was giving shout outs to various groups that were there. This time we were prepared, and Lisa tweeted to him that New Jersey Humanist Network was there, and we got a shout out. So,
That was like my third tweet of my life. I'm sitting there like, how do I find Paul Provenza? Oh, I'll look for the Reason Rally. Hey, Paul, how about a shout out to the New Jersey Humanist Network? And about 15 minutes later, we were very happy.
talking about the diversity of the speakers, one thing that struck me is that they had elected representatives there from various areas. We had a congresswoman from Hawaii.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, what did she say? Do you recall what her?
So she's not, she doesn't consider herself an atheist or, non-religious. But she definitely spoke up about the, need for fact-based policymaking.
Right. Laws based on real things, facts, data, instead of superstition and fear.
And the need to bring people together and instead of trying to divide them, which is something we're hearing a lot about these days.
By the way, she's the only Hindu member of Congress. There was also Jamie Raskin, who he's a state senator in Maryland, and he's running for Congress, and he calls himself the effective progressive. And he talked about mostly climate change, but in the importance of confronting this thing that we're not equipped to do because it's such a long-term problem that we can't think about it in those terms because we're only equipped to deal with what's here and now. Shelley Siegel was there again. She was there the first time. Shelley's a singer-songwriter, and
From Australia.
if you haven't heard her, go on the web and listen to some of her songs. She's really excellent.
What's her name again?
Shelley Siegel, S-E-G-A-L. She released the Atheist album in 2012, and she was invited to sing at the First Reason rally. Really
She
great
wrote a
stuff.
song called Saved, which is, if you haven't heard her song, go on YouTube and find that. She wrote that song as a result of a street preacher knowing absolutely nothing about her. She's a young woman. She was a teenager at the time. A street preacher who knew nothing about her, telling her that she was going to burn in hell. And she was very upset, and that man doesn't know anything about her, and yet he said that. So she's released a couple of albums now, which has a lot of very positive, free-thinking sort of lyrics to them. So who else?
Julia Sweeney,
Julia
George
Sweeney.
Carlin's daughter.
Yeah,
Penn
George,
Jillette.
Kelly Carlin, George Carlin's daughter was
Ken
there.
Gillette.
Penn Jillette was there. He was
Oh, yeah.
his talk was also very emotional. He didn't do the usual thing that you might expect from Penn Jillette. He talked about having heard of the story of a young woman in Ecuador who was competing on the Ecuador's version of Ecuador's Got Talent, like America's Got Talent. And this was a young woman who sang beautifully, and the judges started asking her about her religious beliefs, and she, was trying to say that she didn't have any, and so instead of talking about her performance or judging her in that way, all of the judges just chastised her for her lack of religious belief. And so Penn brought her, he brought her from Ecuador.
And during the episode I watched it, she stood there stoically taking it. And
Right.
Didn't show any sign of like frustration or, right?
Right. So he brought her up on stage so that she could sing her song without any, judgment about her lack of religious belief. So, that was, and he sang with her, so that was. What's next?
Amazing Randy, too.
Randy, talking about facilitated communication,
Yes.
which I guess is still a thing. Is any?
Well, this lady that just got put in jail.
Yeah.
The one at Rutgers, remember her?
Coming back.
No, I don't know.
I guess it's still coming back. Is that better? So it was a thing where autistic children were put in front of a keyboard and they had a person who'd hold their hand, and all of a sudden these nonverbal people
Facilitated communication,
yeah,
it was
so,
called.
yeah, we're typing things and using correct English and spelling and
It was like a Ouija board.
like
Yes.
it was like it was. It's definitely. But initially, and I was a speech pathologist back in the '80s, and so this was kind of exciting because, oh, here's a way that we can get non-communicative people to talk. And so it was interesting at first, and then after a while, it became obvious that the person doing the communicating was the person holding the hand. And so it was. It took a while for it to be discredited. It took a long time, especially. I think the thing that threw it off was when the typists, so the kids, were typing about how they'd been abused by their parents when they hadn't been, and it was all throwing these accusations against the parents, and it was the facilitator doing it, and after a while, I think people started questioning whether or not you can actually, these folks are actually communicating, or if, it was the ideomotor effect. So, but he talked a lot about, I guess it's still a thing, I don't know, but he talked about that.
There was one point at which he pointed out that some young child, a young child was being facilitated in this manner and typed some 6 or 7 syllable word that a 6-year-old would never know. But obviously the facilitator knew the word, and it was a clear indication that this was nonsense. I wanted to bring up, I think another impression that I got from this rally was that a lot of people told personal stories more than they did in 2012. So we had Yvette D'Entremont, who you may know as the Science Babe, who's an internet celebrity who basically spends her time debunking pseudoscience and promoting real science. And instead of doing something like that, which I've seen her do at previous American Atheist conventions, she told a story about her mentor, who was a chemistry professor when she was an undergraduate, and that this person was someone who encouraged her to pursue a career in science, and was always very careful to make sure that she followed the data and gave her really great science instruction, and she lost touch with this woman, and then reconnected with her much later in life. And unfortunately, at the time when she reconnected, her former mentor had stage 4 cancer and was dying, and then she didn't know until this point that her mentor was a devout Catholic, who never even mentioned her personal beliefs when she was a professor. Didn't bring that into the classroom like so many teachers do nowadays. Kept it entirely to herself and stayed focused on the subject. And then she realized that her mentor was someone that she would never agree with, religiously or politically, and yet this person was a profound influence on her life. And
her science career.
And it was a clear description of a person who could hold personal beliefs, of one sort, and yet completely respect the separation of church and state, and the separation of church from science, and it was a moving story to hear, because you don't often hear about these kind of people anymore. You always get the other kind of story nowadays.
So, one of the things I wanted to talk about was, I know that you've also been to a variety of different conferences of various sorts, and I wanted to just explore how you perceive the difference between the rally experience and the conference experience. Conferences are more frequent, and so you're more likely to be able to find one, a little closer by, but they're a different experience. So, could you talk about that a little bit?
Conferences are air conditioned. Yes, and they have real bathrooms. And,
Restaurants.
Yeah, Tim and I have been going to conferences, American Atheist conferences, American Humanist Association conferences, Women in Secularism conferences that are sponsored by the Center for Inquiry. Oh,
Yeah, the Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania non-believers. There's a Pennsylvania Atheist and Humanist Conference. They call it PASTA. PastaCon. So these conferences, each group has them a little different. American Atheists, which we would hear say are the best conferences, their conferences are all, everything is a plenary session, every speaker, you know, and the speakers talk for 30, maybe 45 minutes on various topics. I mean, the American Atheist Convention is where we heard Nathan Phelps, you know, one of Fred Phelps' sons, who escaped at the age of 18 from his family in the Westboro Baptist Church, tell his story. It's where we've heard many former clergy members come out for the first time. And they have, everyone here is the same speaker. The American Humanist Association conferences have breakout sessions where you can, you know, there might be three different choices that you can go to, and you know, there's a lot of moving back and forth. You learn a lot of new information. You go to those conferences and you get to hear about the actual speaker. Carolyn Porco talk about cutting edge scientific discoveries. You get to hear people tell their personal stories about coming out of cults and what they're doing now, how they are helping other people come out of these extreme religious environments. You get to hear Dee Snider from Twisted Sister talk about how his atheism, you know, how that has helped him through the music industry. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I'm forgetting her name, but the woman who was in one of those, you know, quivering movements.
Oh, Vicki Garrison.
Yeah.
Vicki Garrison, who was part of, you know, she was a Quiverful wife. Quiverful, well, there's a Bible verse about having lots of children. It's the Duggar family scenario where however many children God gives you, that each one is a gift and you don't ever stop having them. And that's the whole, the help meet kind of thing where the woman, you know, is submissive to the husband. And Vicki Garrison is a woman who escaped that, writes a blog called No Longer Quivering. And she does outreach work to women in those kinds of situations. Seth Andrews, many of you might know Seth Andrews is the Thinking Atheist. If you haven't seen his YouTube videos, they're wonderful. So Seth was a Christian radio broadcaster for many years. Listen to his videos. He's got this wonderful radio voice, and he does presentations about the infiltration of religion into just about everything in our culture, which of course we all feel like that's what's happening. And he'll talk about how
Christian groups have co-opted all kinds of corporate brands, you know, to use to proselytize to people. He always gives very good talks. There are panel discussions about, obviously, about the difficulty the secular movement has in bringing more minorities and women and you know, people in the LGBT community. And though some of us might think, well, if people in the LGBT community should understand we're natural allies. You know, we don't judge them in religious terms, but it's not that simple. And we have to allow them the opportunity to speak to us so that we understand. There are always those panels.
And I guess one of the things that we talked about was that at rallies, the speeches tend to be very brief. They're like a 15-minute affair, whereas at a conference, usually you're getting like almost like a classroom lecture,
Right.
you know, 45-minute
Right.
of a
PowerPoint
speaker
presentation.
for good or for ill. Yeah,
Right.
sometimes that's good for the deaf. Sometimes it's nice to have the rapid fire of different speakers every 15 minutes.
could I just say something about that? Okay. As far as the rally versus the conference goes, Marilyn and I took the bus, the Reason Rally bus. And on that bus were a bunch of people from New Jersey that had never gone to anything. They didn't go to any conferences, they've never been to any atheist or humanist, but they didn't even know what they saw in the paper about the rally. And so it was like a non-threatening, they didn't have to commit to anything or sign anything. There was a mother and a daughter, there was this other kind of weird guy, and I don't know whatever happened. But we all met at the,
You know that guy.
we all met at the train station in Trenton, that's where we got the bus. And they said, this is great, and then afterwards I saw a couple of them, they said, this was so fabulous because it was fun and they saw a whole bunch of people and so it was a nice getting your foot wet kind of thing rather than a conference we have to pay money and go and eat the food and see the people. And the very first conference I went to was in the 70s and Madeline Murray O'Hare was the speaker. It was in Piscataway, New Jersey in the 70s and I went and I said, this is so fabulous, and it was very cheap and it was just a one-day quick conference. But so I think they need to publicize more fun things like this where people who normally wouldn't commit did. I mean, this mother and daughter, they stayed for half the day and they told me they went shopping for the afternoon. But they got there, they got the literature, and they said they'll definitely try to come to some of our meetings. So, so that's my push for the rally. I think it's terrific.
Right.
So tell us more about the bus experience, the notion of traveling together with lots of people.
Without the leaky air conditioning.
No, we took the rally bus the first time, and we loved it, and it was great. This time, it wasn't so bad for us, but they had already picked up the people in Manhattan. So those poor people had been on the bus already for an hour and a half. Now they picked us up, they picked up the Philly people.
It was like 5 o'clock in the morning.
It was 5 o'clock in the morning in Trenton at the train station with, the questionable, anyway, we were there. So, got on the bus, but the lady was great. They had a captain of the bus and she brought us water and donuts and made sure she had everybody's cell phone in case we got lost. And it was about 25 bucks, 30 bucks? 40 bucks. 40.
I think the closer to the rally
It went up to 60 later.
the
Yeah,
more
but
it
we
up.
booked it early, but I'd highly recommend these rally buses. It's a national concern, and it was wonderful. So that's what I could say about it. I mean, it's not the fanciest bus. It did have the cracked windshield and a leaking air conditioner. The people at first was going to put plastic over their head.
Right.
But
I guess what I was getting
terrific.
at is people socialized on the
They
bus because
socialized.
we had a common interest.
Well, they socialized because they were talking about, we had the common interest, plus we were trying to be nice to the people who had never gone to anything. So it kind of got them thinking, oh, these people aren't weird atheists.
Right.
They're not. I mean, look at us, we're fine, upstanding, members of the community, and they were thrilled to be there. So I would recommend a rally if you can, or a march, more than a long
Plus,
Reno
A
conference.
lot of the people who come to the rally make these great signs.
Yeah, it's fun.
Make costumes, the
Yep.
Flying Spaghetti Monster costumes.
Yep.
They have great T-shirts. Everybody,
It's fun.
you're just walking up and down the sidewalk there, and you see, you know, somebody with this great T-shirt, and next thing you know, somebody's taking your picture. Next thing you know, it's on the internet.
Were there any memorable signs or T-shirts that you?
Oh, gosh.
My favorite was, make America secular again.
Yeah, right.
You should look at our Facebook page, there's pictures.
Oh, yeah.
All our
I
pictures.
think now the rally people have, you know, one of those websites that have all these pictures. They're all there.
One of the things that happened at the rally is we all got this ad that came out from, it may have been scheduled to come out the day of the rally to get everybody's attention, but it was a hat being sold by an organization called Dem Hats, and it says "Make America Smart Again" on the hat. I wanted to mention one of the other differences between the rally and a conference is that at a rally you get you know, musical groups come on and perform, which you don't often have at a conference. And at this rally, we had the Fab Four,
Oh, yeah, that.
which is one of the most famous Beatle cover bands, and of course, they did Imagine and a couple of other songs, so they were enjoyable to listen to.
So, Stephen, did you want to walk the mic around for
Q&A?
for a little bit more Q&A? We've had a little bit of Q&A sprinkled around, but I want to encourage more audience questions now that we're
So yeah, so the
coming
way,
into that.
as you all know, or some of you may know, the way we do the Q&A is raise your hand if you have a question, you want to make a comment, and I'll try and keep track of everyone and go around the room. And yeah.
Linda, and I wondered if you felt energized or were you disappointed that there were fewer people at this rally than the previous one?
So we've been asked a lot about the issue of fewer people and the reason why that is, and you know, everybody has their theory about why there were fewer people. Here's what I can tell you about the people who went to the rally. I didn't care.
I didn't either. No.
I didn't care.
We didn't know.
If there were people who believe that the message of atheism, whatever you think that message is being diluted by taking on specific issues like women's reproductive rights, LGBT rights, climate change, and you don't want to be a part of that, I believe that the people who were there didn't miss those people. Didn't miss those people. This might be an issue for the organizers in terms of
Public perception, maybe?
public
Anything else?
perception or the financial aspect of putting on the rally. I don't know. I'm sure the rally costs a lot of money and they need a lot of people to support it financially. But I'm just gonna put this out there as a woman leader of a humanist group. If you are not someone who can support the issues that most humanists and support, and you don't want to be a part of it, I suggest you go start your own organization and work on the issues that you want to work on. But I know Dave Silverman personally, he's a friend. I know that Dave supports progressive issues and like climate change and women's reproductive rights and LGBT rights, and I see that as the future of where this movement is going, instead of just criticizing people for having religious beliefs.
Right, I mean, the affirmations of humanism are right in front of me, and all you have to do is read that to,
If
understand.
someone comes to one of our meetings and they don't want to talk about these kinds of social justice issues, I say, I'm sorry that we're not the organization for you. And that's how I feel about the rally.
The rally was actually in three sections. The pool was in the middle, and you have a group on one side, but there was also a third set on the other side of the trees.
Well, that's right. That's
Yeah.
if you look, if someone has an agenda where they want to make the rally look like it was, it was pathetic or there was a minimal amount of people, here's what you don't know. People scattered
Well, that's
to the shade.
And behind that, there was some tents where the different groups met.
Right.
And,
Right.
There were the vendor tents that
Right. There were the
organizations
vendor
had all their,
And there was also a tent that had all these different groups.
Right.
Freedom from religion and all.
Everybody was,
So actually, I think there was more people at this rally than 2012, and definitely more than 2002.
well, yes, but not more than 2012. I don't
In
think.
2012, we were all kind of in the same spot.
Right, exactly.
And we were listening to the speakers. It was a good sized rally, but, it was about, I think, 5,000 to 7,000 people at that, in June.
No, the organizers came up with a 30,000 number for 2012. It was probably less than that. I don't know that it was 10,000 less, but I'm pretty sure that this rally was 10,000 less than the 2012 rally. Well, we were there, and we walked all up and down, and there were fewer people.
Good morning. I have two questions. Were there anti-rally protesters there? What were they like? And the other question is, what was there media coverage? Was Fox News there?
Well, I don't know if that's.
So there was a very, very small group of Christian protesters that actually showed up even before the rally got started. And they happened to be on the same side of the reflecting pool as us, and they were about halfway down the pool. So they were quite a distance away from where the stage was. And when I saw them, and we hadn't gotten started yet, we just got our places set up, and I went over and found one who was not engaged in conversation with anyone else, and I said, I don't want to start anything here, but I think you're violating our permit. We have the entire reflecting pool. And he said that one of his other members was talking to one of the park security officials about that very issue. And shortly thereafter, they left. They set themselves up on the other side of the Lincoln Memorial, where the permit did not extend. So they were allowed to be there, but they were invisible from the point of view of the audience. I mean, if you wanted to walk up there during a break, and engage them, and a lot of people did exactly that, you could, but they didn't have any effect on the rally at all. Nothing like 2002, when they were all around us and you could see them from wherever you were. And they were practically invisible. So the park police did their job. They got them off our permit grounds, and they were allowed to have a little pathetic protest, out of sight of everyone.
What was your second?
Was there any media coverage?
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, I think we did, there were a number, I know CNN covered it, Religion News Service covered it. I'm not sure I remember who else. Can't say I really paid attention to whether Fox News covered it. I mean, I think I remember something from Fox about, look at this pathetic group of people, trying to own the issue of reason.
Smirconish had it.
Right.
I've been in a lot of other rallies where there were a lot of people, and the news doesn't cover those anyway, so it doesn't matter if we're a million strong, if we're 10,000 strong. They have their own thing, and that's how they're going to cover it. And don't care. I had fun.
We got, one of the reasons I go is to, make contact with other organizations and other leaders of other organizations. We then, reach out on social media, usually Facebook, reach out to potential speakers to come to New Jersey. Those kinds of things happen at these events. Finding potential speakers or even well-known speakers that doesn't just pull itself out of thin air. You have to, people have to remember you.
Hi. From what I've heard, it's a New Jersey Humanist Network.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that sounded like a news network before.
Religion. I said Religion News Service is one of the media.
What is your organization?
Yes, New Jersey Humanist Network.
Okay, and what is that, and what does it do?
Well, it's a 501c3 organization like Red Bank Humanists that's been was founded in 1994. We have meetings up in central New Jersey.
It's a lot like RBH.
Oh, okay, it's not a network of...
No, I wasn't there when they chose the name.
Network.
It makes it sort of seem like, well, it is. I will say this about NJHN, about New Jersey Humanist Network. We do consider ourselves a network. We are not interested in having people find us and come only to our meetings. If somebody finds us and they don't live in that central part of New Jersey, say they live down here, we have no problems whatsoever of letting those folks know that there's a group that's more local to them. We do that. We've also, Tim and I were here to help start Red Bank Humanists with the experience that we had, but we also helped start the Camden County Humanists and the South Jersey Humanists, and
Gloucester County Humanists.
New Jersey Humanist Network now has chapters in Mercer County and Gloucester County. I would be perfectly happy if there was a humanist or atheist organization in every county in New Jersey, if people wanted to find an organization.
Does NJHN have regular meetings, and do we have forums like this, or
We do.
What are your program?
Yes, we have a monthly program meeting that's just like Red Bank. We have speakers, we have discussion topics, we show documentaries. We have that's in Somerset at the Franklin Township Library. We have a monthly dinner. We have a lot of social activities.
Do you have a book club?
We don't have a book club. We have had a book club. And you have to understand that one thing that's different about NJHN is that we are more spread out. So,
Yeah.
our events it's a little more difficult for people to come, an hour's drive on a really regular basis, so.
Do you want to, Eric, do you have the list of upcoming events for?
Yeah, that's what I was just scrolling through, so.
Can I just?
Oh, wait, go ahead, yeah, one last question here, we're almost out of time.
I was waiting for the end so I can ask, this is like a personal problem. I'm a member of Humanists since 2004. Steelman brought me in, and I've been very happy here. And I consider myself an atheist from the day I was born. But I've run into a problem now. I've just moved into an assisted living place. And all these people are just more or less waiting for God. And I've learned to sort of keep my mouth shut. And sometimes I find it very hard. Because these people walking around with their crosses on and their stars of David and all that kind of crap. And sometimes I want to say something to them, but I just hold back. should I or shouldn't I? And what do I say to these people who next day may be dead? And it's funny, but it does happen.
Let me,
The
you know,
ambulance is always there.
one of the things so I'll try to get through this quickly. You know, when we go to conventions, especially American Atheist conventions, they don't hold these conventions in places that are largely secular. They go to the hotbed of, you know, religious extremism. They go to Salt Lake City. They go to Memphis, and they go to places, and on Easter weekend. And I've had several very positive experiences when we've been out in the community, mostly at restaurants, and someone who's serving us will say, you know,
Why are you in town?
why are you in town, or what, you know, what brings you here? They know they have conventions going on, and if they're close to the hotels where the conventions are going on, they know the restaurants are going to be filled with atheists. And cab drivers taking us from the airport to the hotel will ask, what are you doing in town? And we'll say, we're here for the American Atheist Convention. And rather than that sort of stopping conversation, it has always stimulated conversation. And in almost every instance when we've had this happen, by the time we're done, we're like hugging. Because one of the things I usually wind up saying, and I know that people who are religious, I usually say, you know, none of us are getting out of here alive. And we don't really have very much time. And I think the most important thing is that we be kind to each other, no matter what we believe. And to a person, every single one of those people has gone, you're right about that. I'm perfectly happy having friends and coworkers who are religious, as long as they don't want to institute their religious beliefs into our government policy.
They're always saying something that I feel I have an answer for, or I want to give them a jab or something like that, and I hold back, and that's not my nature.
The only advice I might give you is speak for yourself. Don't try to tell somebody else. If somebody is telling you, when somebody says to me, well, you know, we're all sinners, I say, oh no, I'm not. If somebody says, we're all just here by the grace of God, I say, well, I'm not.
But then you get into the God situation when you say those things. And I'm not in the mood to be.
Well, that's true.
Well, do you have other events at your assisted living facility that are activities and stuff for the residents?
Yeah.
Do they ever have like religious services, or do
They have, right now, they're at religious services.
Could you then?
The hallway there, they put the chairs up and a preacher comes in and all that nonsense.
What would happen if you hosted, what town is this in?
It's in Middletown.
What would happen if you hosted a humanist event at your assisted living facility? Yeah.
I think I'd be executed.
You know,
Kicked out.
NJHM used to have meetings at a place called Arbor Glen, which is an assisted living.
Arbor Terrace.
This is up in Bridgewater, and we got to have our meetings there because one of our members lived there, and he did that. He typed up little flyers and put them on the bulletin board and said we're going to have a conversation, you know, maybe a philosophical conversation.
Well, that's what I was suggesting. You would find other people in your facility that are like-minded, and then you would have, you know, comrades.
I bet you they're there.
Yeah.
Probably are. It's just I'm not there long enough.
Yeah,
Right. There too
I'll
much.
have to talk to him about community.
So yeah, I think
Drinking post to be allowed.
You could have somebody from,
yeah, that's on.
you could have somebody from Red Bank come to your facility to speak. You know, that would get people to come out. That's, if you announce that ahead of time and posted flyers about it, that would get the people that are interested in that sort of thing to come out, and you could meet them.
And if you've got the people who will say something negative to you, you say, you know, I don't speak negatively about your beliefs, and I don't think it's right for you to
But I have this trouble. My wife used to say about me, I always antagonize people, and she said, they'll see me in hell before they agree with me.
Well, I don't think we're gonna change that.
I'm 91, I can't, yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Hang in there.
Go ahead, Eric.
I'm going to talk to you later about my friend who lives in the assisted living, but I think it might be the same place.
I would just say
Right up the
that
road a bit.
It's either Eatontown or.
it's fine to try and sort
I'll
of
tell you later.
withdraw from or express, gently a different opinion, but it's also important not to wear your humanism or atheism on your sleeve in the same way that irritates you about what other people are doing. So if you're irritated by the fact that somebody's, always trying to, witness to you and make you born again, or if you're upset by somebody who's really conspicuous in their language and God talk and just casual conversation, then the way you counter that is to be more polite than they are and not always lead with, well, I think that's a bunch of
Nobody's
hooey.
pushing anything
Right.
on me, it's just that the way they talk,
Right.
Yeah, we all, but, we do all experience that in our families, in our jobs, and amongst our friends. But
We shall see.
good luck.
But
Oh, no. Did you turn your phone off? I did have my phone off. I'm so sorry. I did
that's
turn
okay.
I did turn that off.
Yeah, but I guess the other thing is to the extent that people are giving you that signal that they're religious, that is sort of a warning for you, so they're self-identifying to you, so you can think, okay, well now I know, how they feel. You might want to look for other people who are reacting in a somewhat cautious way to them, and that might be the person who you tap on the shoulder and say, hey.
Well, I tried to weed people out, test them out a little bit. I'll make a little remark or something like that. And if they're susceptible, I go further, but
Right.
not many.
And the last thing I would say is, you're of a generation where people could talk to each other civilly, unlike now.
Yeah,
Should
also fanatically too.
should be able to figure out a way.
Yeah. So I guess.
Do you want to go over the events, the upcoming?
Oh yeah, I was going to go over the events. So we were comparing a little bit the rallies and the conferences. There are no rallies, planned in the next year or so, but there are a number of conferences of various sorts that I thought I should let you know about. And these are sort of in the order of as they're coming up. So there's a conference in Arlington, Virginia, from the group Women in Secularism.
I brought some flyers for that.
There's some flyers at the table for that. And that's in September, the 23rd to the 25th. So that's coming up fairly soon. But I think it's not too late to sign up. And it's not that far away in Northern Virginia. Then the Freedom from Religion Foundation is coming out sort of as close as they usually get to us. They have an event in Pittsburgh, which is, well, not close, it's closer than Madison. They're headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin. So they're coming out east to Pittsburgh in October, the 7th through the 9th. They're having their convention. And we can put links to all of these events, by the way, so you don't have to write down all the details, but just sort of be roughly aware that Freedom from Religion is in October. Then even closer to home, our friends up at the Humanist Chaplaincy of Rutgers University are having their Humanist Institute event right around election time in November 5th through the 7th in New Brunswick. So that's pretty close by. Get up to New Brunswick for that. The American Humanist Association is having an event in Charleston in June the 8th through the 11th. Oh wait, this is next year though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So this is
17th.
next June,
Right,
so
next
this is
June.
almost a year away.
I thought it was going to be in August.
That he's talking about
Oh,
AHA.
AHA.
Yeah, the American Humanist Association. Yeah, there's two organizations meeting in Charleston within like a couple months of each other. So American Humanists
Wow.
are having their event the 8th through the 11th of June, 2017. And then just 2 months later, the American Atheists roll into town, also in Charleston. And they're going to be there from August the 19th to August the 21st. And they chose a much better time in the sense that that is right at the time that the next solar eclipse will be visible right from the Charleston area.
I'm sure they're doing that on
So they
purpose.
picked the location and the time
Right.
to be coincident with the eclipse. So you
They're
can,
having an eclipse watching party. Is it off?
yeah.
They're having an eclipse watching party. Great. At the conference.
So that should be a nice event. The American Atheists have a much more carnival atmosphere, much more really party, energetic style to them.
Not quite as cerebral.
And then I guess on somewhat the other end of the spectrum, the Pennsylvania Atheists and Humanists Conference is going to be in Philadelphia, in the eastern part of the state.
That group puts on
They do a
an
very nice job.
excellent regional conference.
Right. And I've been to one of theirs the last time they were in Philly, and it was a very good time. That's going to be also 2017 in October, the 13th through the 15th in Philly.
So you've got a lot of time to,
And I'll probably be, we'll try and organize something to the ones that are closer by. Certainly to that one. Rutgers is close enough that I don't know if we really need
so
to. We may do
that's
some
the
informal
Humanist,
carpooling.
I'm not sure if that's actually a conference that's open to the public. That's the Humanist Institute, which is, it's like a,
Oh, the one at Rutgers?
yeah, that's if you're familiar with the Humanist Institute, this is like the Humanist Institute is a course that you can take. It's graduate level.
Oh, it's not a conference, it's
It's a class, yeah.
Okay.
So the Humanist Institute meets, you sign up for, it's like a year of college at graduate level. And they meet maybe I think they meet 4 times a year. Otherwise, you do most of your coursework online. They meet 4 times a year, and I think that's one of their meetings.
Oh, okay.
Don't think that's open to
That's not a
everybody.
one-off. Okay. Yeah, that was submitted by a member, so.
If you're interested in going to any of these conferences, as longtime conference goers, we have a piece of advice. If you think you're interested in going to a conference and you're not sure you're going to go, book a hotel room. Book a hotel room, because especially at the American Atheist conferences, the hotels fill up. They get a special rate if you're going to the hotel as a member of the conference. You can always cancel the hotel room if you can't make the conference, but book the hotel room first in advance so that you have that waiting for you if you decide to go.
Because it's no fun to have to book a hotel that's somewhere else than the place where the conference is being held, because it sucks to have to take a shuttle or a cab or every day to and from. You can make your hotel reservation a year in advance. If you decide 2 weeks before the conference that you can't go, you can cancel your room. So it doesn't cost you anything to make a hotel room reservation.
All right, so at this point, I'd like to close the forum, but you're welcome to stick around a little bit and chat, and then many of us will be heading over to Gianni's for lunch, as we always do. And if you're new to that, there's a little map right here on the program. Or you can ask me or one of the other regulars about getting there. I could even offer a ride. So we'll be doing that. And are you guys going with us?
I think so.
Probably, yeah.
Thanks for having us.
That's good.